Hello everyone, welcome to our session on S.D. Coleridge. We all know that his full name is Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Come, let's go. First English critic. So Coleridge is the first English critic. His literary criticism will be based on philosophical principles, and then more interested in the creative process. So he was more interested in the creative process, so that made it what it was than in the finished product. And then in his own words, he endeavored to establish the principles of writing rather than to finish rules how to pass judgment on what has been written by others. But his critical works suffer from a woeful lack of system. His biography literaria, the greatest of them, is ill planned and incomplete. And then his lectures on Shakespeare, it is only next in importance when we compare his biographia. And then it is disjointed and it is ill reported. And his other prose writings, The Friend, The Table Talk, the contributions to Sades Omniana, the letters, the posthumous Anima Poeta, they all contain criticism, but we could find only the fragments of criticism in those works. And then um, he was one of the very greatest critics of the world. And then according to Coleridge, he says that poetry is an act of imagination. Okay. Before that, we have seen many critics. They defined poetry as an act of imitation, but according to Coleridge, poetry is an act of imagination. Okay. In the 18th century, it was originally often confused with fancy. So they, in the beginning, they confused the word imagination with that of fancy. Okay. And then, but what is imagination? So imagination fused all things into one. So they take one color and serve to one effect. So fancy reshaped them more or less willfully. Okay, so the creations of the one were sublime, so those of the other were only beautiful. So those who are excel in that work, so their creations will be of sublime, but those who are not excel, so their creations will be only beautiful. You have to differentiate between the word sublime and beautiful. Okay. And then um, Mr. Wordsworth's writing is more or less predominant, and it also constitutes the character of his mind. So the primary imagination, simply the power of perceiving the object of sense. So he has examined the very nature and genesis, what it is and how it is set in motion. So he had examined all those things. So the primary imagination. So what is primary imagination? It is simply the power of perceiving the objects of sense, that is person, place or things. So both they consider the sense of imagination both in part and as a whole. Okay, then secondary imagination. So what is secondary imagination? Secondary imagination is the conscious use of this part. So it is a composite faculty of the soul consisting of all the other faculties. And then the third, it is a shaping and a modifying part. Okay. And then the mind coloring nature. So the mind coloring nature becomes one with nature, and nature colored by the mind become one with the mind, becomes one with the mind. So you have to be careful with when you read this point. Okay, so imagination is above all, so it is a unifying or exemplastic power. Okay. It's just a difference of degree arising from the lack of capacity in the one case and its presence in the other. So there is no difference between Coleridge's conception of imagination and Wordsworth. So it has the same modifying and unifying function in both. But Wordsworth only considered the influences of fancy and imagination as they were manifested in poetry. But Coleridge sought to discover the seminal principle. So that led to those diverse effects. And then Coleridge, he did not regard fancy as a creative power at all. So it only combines the things it sees and it into pleasing shapes instead of fusing them like imagination. Okay. And then um, the thing imitation. So imitation is just a psychological process, so it arises from the impact of nature on the soul. Okay. And then what is dark, it illumines, and what is low, it rises. Okay. And then the sense of novelty and of freshness with old and familiar objects more than usual state of imagination. A poem uses the same medium as a prose composition, that is the words. Okay. A more than usual state of emotion with more than usual order draws attention on the one hand to the state of excitement in which the artist composes, and on the other to the cold deliberation with which he gives his excitement expression. Okay. And then he says the metrical form of poetry is closely related to its language and content. Okay. So it that is, it excites a more continuous and equal attention than the language of poems, the language of prose it aims at. Okay. So on the question of the language of poetry, Coleridge disputed Wordsworth's assertion that a selection of the real language of men, or the very language of men, that constituted the language of poetry. And in that case, that there was no essential difference between the language of prose and that of language of poetry. So every man's language, that is, he says, every man's language varies according to the extent of his knowledge, the activity of his faculties, and the depth or quickness of his feelings. So he's saying that see, um, if a person who is intellectual, if he gives a talk, so it will be different. That is, he will use some he will his talk will be of something noble. But a person who doesn't know English, or who doesn't know how to frame sentences, and who doesn't know the sentence structure, then if he gives a talk, so how it will be, we could find the differences. Both are from the same, we can take those two persons from the same family, and they are brought up in a same manner. So the intelligence, based upon the intelligence and their behavior, the surrounding people, so it also will affect, so the language will differ. So this is the point he was saying. Then sense of musical delight. So in poetry we could find some sense of musical delight. So it consists in the perfect sweetness of the versification, that is, its adaptation to the subject, and the power of varying the music of the words. Okay. And then choice of subjects very remote from the private interests and circumstances of the writer himself. So the choice of subjects should be from the private, should not be from the private interest. And then a poet's pictures of life are not faithful copies. So it is not faithful copies, right? Because um, they become poetic only as far as they are modified by a predominant passion. So it is not a faithful copy because they include some of their imagination in their work. So it is not a faithful one. It includes some imagination part also. Depth and energy of the thought. So Wordsworth, he had said that poems to which any value can be attached were never produced on any variety of subjects, but by a man who, being possessed of more than usual organic sensibility, had also thought long and deeply. So Coleridge is of the same opinion. So Coleridge persons and characters will be of supernatural. Okay. So his characters will be of supernatural. And then the true stage illusion consists not in the mind's judging it to be a forest, but in its remission of the judgment that it is not a forest. So, what is the true stage illusion? So, if a play is enacted before us, so in that in a particular scene, the background of that particular play is forest. So, The true illusion consists not in the mind judging it to be a forest. So the true judgment is not that we consider it as a forest, but the true judgment is we consider that it is not a forest. So that is the true stage illusion. That is what he is saying. So what is this? This is kind of true illusion. Okay, so it is non-poetic or non-artistic, concerning itself more with the working of the poet's or artist's mind. So it is the philosopher's approach rather than the critic, and literature is not philosophy, because philosophical things means it will so we could see a simple logic between literature and philosophy. So literature, it will when we read literature works, we will feel excited to read, but on the other hand, when we read a philosophical work, it will be full of a physical philosophical things which will make us to get bored. So this is the simple difference between literature and philosophy, because literature is life, but philosophy, the things which we apply in our life, that is something related to only good things. So this is, so literature is not a philosophy. So with this, we can end this session on Coleridge. I hope you're all clear with Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So how his criticism was. So he was the main concept that we should understand from this session is Coleridge considered poetry as act of imagination. So he's somewhat different from the earlier critics which we have discussed already. Okay, so because they have considered poetry as an act of imitation. So only we could find a minute difference between the act of imitation and the act of imagination. So you should be very clear when you define the definition coined by different writers. I hope you're all clear with this. Okay, so thank you for watching.